morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. And I have to start by just, how am I going to say this? All right, well, I'm a Greek girl by birth, right? And so it's Easter in the Greek Orthodox Church. I know we're still a little tired from last week, from last Easter, but I get to say Happy Easter again for all my Greek friends. And in the Greek church, what you say is Christos Aneste, which means Christ is risen. And then the other person says Alithos Aneste, he's a good married to a Greek girl guy. Alithos Aneste, which means truly he is risen. And so happy Easter, everyone, in the Greek church. And so we don't have more chocolate eggs for you or another egg hunt, but I'm going to try and get some really good Greek food today to honor that. So I invite you to do that too. But we're on our month of joy. Our theme this month is choosing joy, and we're talking about joy a lot. And as we've talked about already, and as we know, joy is our true state of our being. It is a true nature of our being, and it's alive within us no matter what. And it's not just the idea of like that maybe we'll have a little bit of happiness sometimes, maybe, or that we'll feel good a little bit. That's not the idea of this. The idea is that there's a core part of your being at the center of who you are that is pure joy. It doesn't come and go. It doesn't depend on anything that's happening, but it's a pocket of essence of energy. I want you to think of that, that it lives in your heart, that there's joy there all the time. And sometimes we put our attention elsewhere. We put our attention on the outside world. We put our attention on the challenges that we have. We put our attention on things that don't look the way we want them to. And that kind of covers over our joy. You don't connect to it. But the idea of this is, and I like to give you the end at the beginning, right? Just in case something happens in the next 20 minutes. Or as they were telling me on retreat this weekend, 28 minutes. But I go a little bit longer than maybe I should, but we'll talk about that later. But the idea is that we cover over it. But no matter what's happening, if we put our attention back on that pocket of truth that's within us, then it comes forth like it bubbles up, it bubbles over. Like a geyser, it comes out into our experience. And so no matter what's happening on the outside, no matter how difficult things are, no matter how bleak it looks or how challenged we are, there still can be joy. In the midst of pain, in the midst of difficulty, in the midst of despair, in the midst of challenge, it's there for us. And that's what I want us to remember, that we have to choose it. That's why I was very specific of picking the theme for the month. Not that your joy, oh great, I'm joy. I don't feel joy all the time. I don't feel good all the time. I'm not connected to it, but I can choose it. And each and every one of us can choose joy. We can choose that as our path instead of a path of suffering, instead of a path of difficulty. And how about this one? Instead of a path of drama. Anybody know people who choose that one? Or me? I don't expect you to raise your hand on it. You don't have to tell your neighbor. Don't worry. But so it's all about how we actively cultivate that experience of joy, that we choose it, and we remember that it's there for us no matter what's happening. And that's my goal for us this month, is that we realize that our attention is a tool. Your conscious attention is a tool, and when you put your attention upon these truths of your being, they come forward, they amplify. And so when we get stuck in a rut, when we get stuck in that path, we just forget that. Because all we can see is the pain and the difficulty and the challenge and I don't want to deal with this again. But we can, by moving our attention and putting it elsewhere. The Torah teaches that one should serve God with joy. And the way that I take that teaching is I think about it as our life is a gift unto life itself. Who you are, that individual gift that you are, is a gift to life itself. And we are, as we express who we are in this world, that's living our purpose. As we let go of all of those facades and those ideas that we think that other people want us to be, let's throw that out the window, right? It's not serving anybody. It's not making us feel better. It's not doing anything for anybody, except for giving us some false sense of expectation of how someone else is going to be or how we're supposed to be. Let's be authentically ourselves. And when you do that, you're serving God. And when we connect with that place of joy and give of our lives freely and fully, then we are serving God with joy. And Jesus, from the New Testament, Jesus said to his disciples, this is from John chapter 15, verse 11, he said this, "These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may remain in you, and that your joy may be full." Again, I'm going to say it again. "These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may remain in you, and that your joy may be full." Jesus came to teach us to be fully embodied and expressed in life. Jesus came to teach us. His teachings were so that we could have joy. And it's so funny to me because so many people think that when we focus on the teachings of Jesus, when we focus on the New Testament, that it's all about Jesus' suffering, right? We talked about that a lot on Easter and how he moves through suffering into this experience of resurrection. But the idea is not to focus on the suffering. He came, everything he said was to empower us. And I don't understand the people that don't read those lines, right? Like, I don't understand that. He says, "I want you to have joy." Okay, Jesus wanted us to have joy. You know what? We better sure as well have joy. That's the point. You know, "These things and greater shall ye do." Okay, well, he did some really great things and we're going to do it greater. I don't know what's greater than turning water into wine. I don't know what that would be. Maybe turning, I don't know, making chocolate, something. I don't know. I don't know what that would be. Maybe something, but "these things and greater shall you do." How are we missing the point of what he came to teach us? He came to teach us to live a full and joy-filled life. That God's greatest pleasure is for us to have the kingdom. The kingdom of heaven is where? Here. When? Now. Okay, there you go. That's it, right? I'm like, okay, that's my foundation of Christian teaching. And that's the foundation of what we know of who we are from the inside out. Jesus came to teach us that we are here to have joy. And our guiding quote comes from Ernest Thompson, the founder of religious science. Oh, and did you still like this guy? Okay, so we're talking about joyous expectancy. I forgot to tell you my talk title. All right, but you knew it. Yeah. You're very smart people. Okay, so I chose this little guy because look, he's just so excited. That's joyous expectancy right there. I feel like we could just go have coffee now because I don't need to tell you anything. If you match that energy of that little baby, you know, there's nothing else to know. But I do have more, so we will keep going. But we'll keep him with us. Let's see, turn it off. Okay, so this is from Ernest Thompson, founder of religious science. He said this: "It's not by a terrific mental struggle or soul strain that we arrive at our goal, but through a quiet expectation, a joyful anticipation, the calm recognition that all the peace there is, and all the power there is, and all the good there is love, the living Spirit Almighty." True joy comes from filling that void within us with a deep understanding of our connection with the One, that presence of God that is pure joy. And so we're talking about joy rather than happiness. I'm going to move it back to my little friend here. We're going to stay with him for a little while. If you get bored, you can just look at him. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. All right, so we're talking about joy rather than just happiness, and not that there's anything wrong with being happy. Happiness is a great feeling. It's a great experience. When we discover our connection with the divine and begin to realize our true nature, happiness happens easily and effortlessly. And that's because we know joy. Happiness is something that kind of comes and goes, right? Sometimes we have a happy day, and sometimes we have a not so happy day, and sometimes we have a really great day, and sometimes we have a really, you know, it's not fun. But so happiness seems to flow. But the truth is the foundation is joy. And when we have joy, happiness comes much easier and stays much longer because it's not attached to something happening on the outside. It's attached to our way of being. Now, I always like to teach you something, and so this is the new thing we get to learn this week. Hap is the root of the word happy, and that means chance. I did not know that. And it's the root of several words. Happen, happening, haphazard, which is dependent on mere chance, hapless, happenstance, which is a chance circumstance, and happy. Happiness is a glad feeling that depends on something good happening outside of us, by chance. By chance. But we know that we're not just dependent on good things happening from the outside, because we are living from the inside out, not from the outside in. When we live from the inside out, and we know the truth of our being, when we can connect with that essence, that presence of joy within us, then it doesn't matter what happens on the outside. It doesn't matter that we don't put our well-being and our feelings up for chance, for luck. Well, I hope I have a good day tomorrow. Oh wait, huh? I hope that things turn out okay. Well, yeah, I don't. There's many times that I can't speak for you, that I have lived in that, and that just moves us all around. There's no foundation, there's no solid, there's no consistency, there's no equilibrium in that. But when we connect with the truth of who we are and know that no matter what happens, we're okay, because we are connected to that divine presence. So, joyous expectancy. Joyous expectancy. So I have a little test for us. A way to check whether you're in touch with your presence of joy. And don't worry, this is a test that I'm not going to have your neighbor correct it for you, so don't worry about that. So I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to close your eyes for a second, and then you're going to answer it for yourself, not out loud, just to yourself. All right. When you think about your future, about what's to come, how do you feel? Just take a moment and close your eyes and think about what's to come in the next 6 months for you. What you expect will happen in this time. How about 2 years? Think about what's to come in the next 2 years. 5 years. Spread it out to 5 years. How about 10? There's a lot of nods on that one when I did 10. Now your heads went up and down. Oh. All right, so come on back. So this is the question that you get to answer for yourself. Are you excited? Yeah, you get to answer it for yourself. You don't have to answer it to me. Okay, do you have a joyful anticipation of what's to come? Are you a quiet expectancy, as Ernest Thompson says? Or is there a little bit of nervousness? Some fear? Some worry? Some cautiousness? Anybody just say, no, I'm not doing that. Avoidance, right? Yeah. So that's going to tell you where you are. That's going to tell you, answering this question will tell you where you are with a joyous expectancy. And it'll also tell you a very important thing that I talk about all the time. I feel like I'm up here. If I had a Bible-thumping moment, or a science of mind thumping moment, it would be the fact that I'm constantly trying to express that life is for you and not against you. And so answering this question, how you feel about this question, is going to tell you where you are in that continuum of believing that life is for you or that life is against you. And what that means is it shows you also where your relationship with the divine is. Because if we have a trust and a faith that all things unfold for our highest and greatest, when we believe that we are interconnected with this presence of God that has created all things, that has created each one of us and guides and supports us, when we have a deep knowing of that, a deep faith in that, you'll be excited about what's coming. You'll have a knowing, a solid knowing that everything will be okay. It's just the way life works. So that's the test for the day, and that's our work for the month. Look, I can't guarantee that if you meditate every day and you learn how to pray and you align yourself with God, that nothing unpleasant will happen. I can't. And that everything will disappear that doesn't feel good. Because the truth is that life is going to happen. It's really funny. Recently I was looking through, I was reading a young woman's blog, and she had this whole new meditation program she was bringing out, and in her advertisement for her meditation program, what she was talking about was all the benefits of meditation, and we know a lot of them, right? We know that it's good for our mental state, our sense of well-being. It's really great physiologically. It helps with our heart rate and regulates our circulation, and it opens us to new possibilities, and it connects us with the divine. Well, she added another one to it that I thought was really interesting. She said, if you meditate daily, what happens is you find your perfect weight, you have great orgasms. And there was a little asterisk, and I was like, oh, I gotta read what that asterisk means, And she said, I cannot guarantee this, but it sounds right. I was like, I can't, you know? I digress. But the idea is this, and I've heard this said over and over again: pain is part of the path of life, right? Pain is part of the path, suffering is optional. All right? And it's like that from that reading that you know, we know going in that childbirth is really painful, and they say you forget it, but you don't. You don't. I have not forgotten it 10.5 years later. But oh, I just got myself all tied up in that. Okay, come back. Okay, so suffering is optional. And so, but what we know is that you get the gift, you know, that it's a pathway for growth, for expansion. And it's a really great reminder for us that, and then for you too, you are constantly giving birth to new things. I don't want you to feel left out. That there is that growth and expansion that can feel like birth, and you're in that too. It's the same for you too. I just don't want you to just shut off and say, oh, she's just talking to the ladies. I'm not. I'm talking to all of us. Because when we birth something new, sometimes it's painful. When we're trying to do something new and make ourselves do it, get ourselves focused to sit down and actually work on what it is that we want to do that's new, to open to new possibilities, take a new step that feels shaky. You got to move through the pain. You got to move through the resistance and the fear to be able to engage in that. And you get the gift when you do it. You don't get the gift ahead of time because then we wouldn't do it, you know? And so it's that desire and that drive to grow, to expand, to be who we are that allows us to move through that pain, to move through that. And what happens is our spiritual practice supports us in knowing that. Our spiritual practice supports us in being able to navigate those tough waters, to bring forth what's being called forth within us. The first step in this is to be clear about what we believe about God. All right? I stand up here each week and I talk about the presence. And I talk about in all the different kind of names that might work for you, because I know that sometimes people in this denomination have a really tough time with the word God. Sometimes we don't like to hear it, that it reminds us of the God of our childhood, and so we try and come up with other words, you know, that more better explains what it is. But you have to come up with that word for yourself. So whether it's God or spirit or love or the universe or, you know, Atman, Brahman, whatever, you know, the force, whatever that is that works for you, you need to clarify it for you. I talk a lot about the God of your heart. And that phrase came to me at a very important time in my spiritual development. Someone said it. I wish I could remember who said it to give them credit. So thank you to whomever said it first in my life. But the God of your heart. And I talk about the God of your heart because it's not the God of the Bible, and it's not the God of the Quran, and it's not the God of that the Buddhists talk about, which is not a God. It's a presence and interconnectedness. It's not anybody else's God. It's your God. I can tell you what my relationship with the divine is like, and I'm very clear about what God is in me and as me. I know how God works with me. I know how God speaks to me. I know because I've cultivated that relationship for 20 years. I've done a lot of work on it. And I can speak to you about how that works, but only you are going to be able to figure out who God is for you. And it's not the God of the Bible that's the God for you. And it's not the God that I talk about that's the God for you. It's your God. And it shows up for you in a very unique way. It speaks to you in a very unique way. And it's like a relationship that we need to spend some time with it, that we need to cultivate it, that we need to invite it, that we need to be kind to it and not ignore it and not pretend it's not there. Think about any relationship in your life that if you started to ignore them and you pretended that they weren't there, how good would that relationship be? No matter how supportive and loving that other person is to you, they're going to get pretty tired of it and be like, okay, well, I guess my work here is done. And we'll take a step back. That's what the divine does. It takes a step back and lets you do what you're going to do until you invite it in. Until you stop and pause and listen. And when you can stop and pause and listen and be, it moves in, it comes forth, it rises within you, and it starts to operate in the way that makes sense to you. It's important for us, in order to be able to find joy, it's not deferring to what happens on the outside. Remember, that's happiness that comes and goes. When we lean into the presence, the God of our hearts, joy rises. True joy comes forth. Again, Ernest Thompson said, one should radiate joy and should be filled with faith, hope, and expectancy. Again, faith, hope, and expectancy. I don't see anything but that in this little baby. These cheerful, hopeful attitudes of mind are indispensable to the one who really wants to do things in life. So we have a new book for the month, you've heard already. I love this book. I am loving this book. I've carried it everywhere. It's been with me. I even love just looking at their sweet faces. Oh my goodness, these two men. And this was, so it's the Book of Joy by the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu. And they got together for a series of dialogues a number of years ago about joy. And the third author, which I should give, Douglas Abrams, he recorded the whole thing and then edited it all together. And so this, I'm loving this. And so I have a reading for you from it today. And I'm actually going to do the glasses on my prop. I'm doing it. Just to make sure I do it correctly. All right, so they said this. Okay. It seems that Buddhists believe that joy is the natural state, but that the ability to experience joy can also be cultivated as a skill. As we were hearing, so much depends on where we put our attention. Sounds familiar. On our own suffering or that of others. Or on our own perceived separation, or on our indivisible connection. Our ability to cultivate joy has not been scientifically studied as thoroughly as our ability to cultivate happiness. In 1978, psychologists Philip Brickman, Dan Coates, and Ronnie Janoff-Bullman published a landmark study that found that lottery winners were not significantly happier than those who had been paralyzed in an accident. Lottery winners were not any happier than people who were paralyzed in an accident. Let's let that one fall for a second. Okay? Wow. From this and subsequent work came the idea that people have a set point that determines their happiness over the course of their life. In other words, we get accustomed to any new situation and inevitably return to our general state of happiness. However, more recent research by psychologist Sonia Lubomirsky suggests that perhaps only 50% of our happiness is determined by immutable factors like our genes or temperament, our set point. The other half is determined by a combination of our circumstances, over which we may have little control, and our attitudes and actions, over which we have a great deal of control. According to Lubomirsky, the three factors that seem to have the greatest influence on increasing our happiness are our ability to reframe our situation more positively, our ability to experience gratitude, and our choice to be kind and generous. These were exactly the attitudes and actions that the Dalai Lama and the Archbishop had already mentioned, and to which they would return as central pillars of joy. All right, so central pillars of joy. Reframing a situation more positively, experiencing gratitude, and being kind and generous. It's our attitude and our mindset that opens or closes our doorway to joy. To be joyously expectant. To not have strong expectations as to how things will be exactly, but to hold the idea in mind that joy is your truth and your life unfolds from your truth. One of the New Thought teachers, Emma Curtis Hopkins, says, there's great good for you and you ought to have it. And I changed it to there's great joy for you and you ought to have it. Because what a waste. If there's this great experience of joy that's just sitting there waiting for you, and we're wasting it by focusing on our worry, by focusing on what we don't like, by focusing on the difficulty and how hard it is. When there's a big pocket of joy sitting right next to that, we're choosing the bitter stuff instead of the sweet. And what good is that? It's a waste. It's a waste. And so since I've been thinking about this topic for a few weeks, it's funny because each time I work on it, as many of you know, I have a new little companion. I have a new little puppy, Daisy. And every time I would think about this or I try to do some journaling or something, she gets in my way. Like she jumps on, I was working on it here, she actually jumped onto the front of my desk. Or she jumps on my computer, or one time I was meditating on it, she literally jumped, I was sitting on the floor, she jumped on my head. She did. And so it was finally, I finally understood it. Finally, I just woke up to what she was trying to tell me, is that be like Daisy. Daisy is joy, right? And so I figured, some of you haven't met her, so I'd introduce you to Daisy. Let's see. Oh, there's Daisy. Daisy May Butterworth. That's my baby. And she comes to work with me sometimes when I'm going to be gone a full day, she comes in. She comes in on Thursdays. And she hasn't come on Sunday because I think she doesn't like to be upstage, so she'd be in my office yipping and all of that. So she's a multi-poo. We've had her since the end of November. And for some reason, God just said, you need a dog. And I was like, no, I don't. And God said, yes, you do. And then I said, I want a dog. And my husband said, no, you don't. And I said, yes, I do. So then I found her, and so then we got her. And all of this craziness is unfolded. But this is the lesson of Daisy. So when I have a long day at the office and she doesn't come with me, or when I leave her at the boarding place for 2 days, like I just did when we were in Joshua Tree, when I come back, she's not mad at me. She's not pissed. She's not vengeful. She's not going to retaliate against me. She's happy. She's happy no matter what. She sits there and waits. And so when we came in to pick her up yesterday, and she stays with her groomer, and her groomer is right next door to my husband's work. And so my husband was like, well, okay, I'm going to run into my office real quick, and while you go get the dog. I'm like, okay, fine. So we went in the front door, and he walked around the back door. Now the back door was open, and the groomer, Sage, she said to me, she said, okay, well, Daisy, Mama's here, you know. And I heard her yipping, and she was at the back door watching Steve go into the office and couldn't understand why he wasn't seeing her and why he wasn't like giving her any attention. He was like, she literally was jumping on her hind legs, like, and I was like, hello, I'm right here, you know. And finally she got a whiff of me. She ran so fast, she like almost leapt over this little fence to get to us. Joy, pure joy, joyous expectancy, because you know what? She expects that there's love for her, and she ought to have it. She knows that there's fun for her, and she ought to have it. She knows her true nature is to be that presence of joy and love. Watching her jump through my ice plant, she leaps like a bunny. It's really hilarious. I have so much fun watching her, except for when she's jumping on my computer and on my head when I'm trying to get some work done. But now I realize what she's trying to tell us. She's trying to tell me. And so how do I be more like Daisy? How can I let go of those things that I think are going off the tracks? When I want things to be a certain way and they don't work that way. Like I said, we just got back from the Joshua Tree retreat, and that was a really wonderful time. We had such a great time. It was such a good group. I'm not going to tell any stories of y'all, but so everybody who was there can calm it down. But what happened was this. It went completely wrong for me. It went completely wrong for us. For me. Because what happened was I had a plan. We were going to leave at a certain time and things were going to work, and everything went wrong. There was an extra thing that had to happen on Thursday before we left, so we left 2.5 hours later than we were supposed to. I had to drive all over the place to get the dog to the place, and I had to figure out where we were going to park our cars and all of that, and we left on Thursday evening from Fallbrook at 5 o'clock. To try to get there, we were going to start at 7. Yeah. Okay. We got there. I got there. But I was like, you know. And then when we get there, we figure out, I knew that we were not at the same hotel, but I didn't know that my hotel was 25 miles away from the other hotel. Like, I didn't know that it was 25 miles. Okay? It was 25 miles away. You know what I mean? So then I'm like, okay, how does that work? And then when we started to check into the hotel, first they couldn't find our reservation. I was like, you are kidding me. Like, what is going on with this, you know? I'm like, okay. And so then the whole thing unfolded, right? So, and the big thing that we talk about for this retreat is stargazing. That's the big thing we talk about. We go to see the stars because it's a spiritual experience, sitting in the desert in the dark with no light, and you get to see the stars. There is a huge cloud sitting right over where we were. And this cloud is not only a big cloud, it was like a UFO-sized cloud. I kept walking around saying, there's the aliens, look at the UFO, you know, it's going to emerge from the cloud. I kept saying that. I saw one star. I was like, look, there's a star! You know, we didn't even pull the telescope out. But what we did have was the most beautiful sunset I've ever seen in my life. And if I had been so attached to it going wrong, I would have missed the joy of it. We had the best time. I never laughed so much. Like I said, I never had sand in so many different places that I never thought would get sand. That was funny. Come on. That was funny. And all of these amazing things happened despite the fact that it went completely wrong for me. And if I had been so attached to it going off the rails, I would have been miserable through the whole weekend, but I had the best weekend I've had in a long time. We had such a great retreat. It was so wonderful. And it was because we didn't allow the outside circumstance to affect the inside. Because we know who we are. We are the presence of joy and love. And wherever 2 or more CSL TV members are, it's a party. Let me tell you. And we will have fun no matter where we are, no matter what we're doing, no matter how it works. It's just the truth of our being. And so be like Daisy. Let us be like Daisy. Let us not hold on to those things that we think are wrong. Let us not hold on to that idea that we've been wronged. Let us not hold on to anything other than the fact that there's a divine perfection unfolding in us. It's the presence of God. It's the presence of love. And it's the presence of joy. And we have a choice whether we're going to live it or whether we're going to deny it. But I'll tell you, I'm going to be like Daisy and I'm not going to deny it. Because this life was meant to be filled with joy, to be filled with that experience and that understanding that life is supposed to be fun. Life is supposed to be an engaging, enjoyable, fulfilling experience. There is joy for you and you ought to have it. And so my idea for us this month is to use this as a tool to create more joy, to allow it to be here, to invite it, to embrace it, to lean into it, and to allow it to just bring forth all of the experiences and all of the happiness and all of the amazing blessings of God. Because in that way, we are fulfilling the teachings of Jesus, the teachings of every single spiritual being on this world, from history, to be the presence of God in action. And so that's my goal for this month for each and every one of us. I hope you join me. And so it is.